The Leading Force is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Together we'll go far.
Hi, this is Sunil Hali. Once again, welcome to the show, The Leading Force, where we introduce you to individuals or organizations who have done extraordinary work in our community in North America, especially the South Asians. An innovator, a visionary, an embodiment of American dream. He is the first South Asian to be elected to New Jersey Assembly and the fourth Asian Indian at a state level. Pravasi Sammanit, decorated, most loved, Upendra Chivkula is with us today for the show, The Leading Force. Upendra ji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sunil.
Upendra ji, this show we talk about the life, the work of people like you who have done extraordinary work in your case for last almost 40 years now. You say education is the greatest equalizer. Why?
Well, when you are born into a poor family, and how do you come out of the poverty? Through education, you can show intelligence doesn't matter. It's not reserved only for rich people. It's also poor people are also intelligent. If they can learn and they can apply their education, and they can advance themselves, and that's how people like myself, who come from a poor family, work through very great difficulties, but one differentiating force is the education that enabled me to come to United States in search of further studies, but also entering the political arena.
But how did it come to you so early in your life? You come from a family which is, like you said, not a very rich family, rather a struggling family, and your father made a move from native place to Chennai almost in 60s, and even at that stage you had clear mind that you need to make education your biggest tool. How did that come to your mind?
Well, I saw people around me, and some of the things people have been achieved. There are a lot of people, successful people who have a lot of education, and when it came to me, it was very difficult. Even though I was studying in Telugu medium in Chennai, and I was first in my class, and but the competition was very high, and wanted to go to college, and my father she said, I could not afford to send you to college, and I said, no, I have to study. That's the only way I can better myself. In India, when you look at people become doctors, lawyers, or engineers, and the least cost-effective way is becoming an engineer.
And you had, just as you say in some notes that you have shared with people, you had one lamp at home, and you were burning the midnight's oil to become an engineer. Some typical thing that comes to your mind when you look back, what was one thing that you thought at that time, if this I can conquer, I'll be able to do what I want to do?
Life is it's basically problem solving and rising up to the challenges. And when I was raised with 5 other siblings, and my mother, father, and my grandmother, and we were in a little hut, and we were trying to build a house, but we didn't have the resources, and because the electricity was difficult to get because of the hut, and so we were able to use the kerosene lamps, and we were able to study. I think the key thing is that I knew that it's like in the darkness, you light a little lamp, and it really brightens the area, and that is hope.
Did you ever contemplate to give up? Let's leave it. Let me just have another, like all other kids, play, finally get some job.
Never occurred to me. I said at any cost, I have to achieve that.
Very clear
and
mind.
That was, I knew that it was not going to be easy. It was demonstrated throughout my life. Even after getting my engineering degree, getting a job was very difficult, and I could not give up. And
you're talking of late 60s.
Late 60s, and it's not about 1972, I graduated from engineering college. one thing I noticed that giving up is too easy, and if you stick to it, and eventually you'll achieve what you want. And there are many, many examples in the history.
Now, when you look back of about that phase of your life, you had 5 other siblings with you and parents. Your father was extremely honest man, highest integrity. Mother, father, teacher, who was really your mentor?
No, I think it's my mother. I think because in those days she comes from a village from in Andhra Pradesh, and her father. Those days they didn't want women to have education beyond certain level, and they said, why do you need education if you're a woman?
Exactly.
And she was stopped her education around the 6th grade or so, but she has the willpower. She went and learned how to sing and how to play veena, and she became a music teacher, and she was giving out tuitions and brought us up.
She was your mentor.
She was definitely
Any role models? Because in 60s and early 70s, India saw a lot of leaders coming up. Even globally, we had lots of leaders. Anybody that came to your mind as a mentor?
Well, I did not see Mahatma Gandhi because I was born after his death, and read about him. And we had Jawaharlal Nehru was the prime minister at that time, and John F. Kennedy was putting the man on the moon and challenging America. And then Mother Teresa, she was doing some good work around that time. And it is a piece of it, there's not a single individual, but you try to take the best of each of those great people and see how you can adapt to for yourself. And I think that's what I was able to try to do.
But you never worked in India, really?
I did. Actually, after I graduated in 1972 from engineering college, I went to Mumbai.
Okay.
And I worked there, struggled for about 3 months to find a job. And finally, I worked for a company called Ion Exchange India Limited in Mahalakshmi, Mumbai. And there I was a design engineer. And that was also a very interesting story in that because I was so desperate to get a job, and I actually undersold myself. The going salary was 600 rupees a month at that time. And he asked me how much money you want. I said, I need 400. So I thought that's the... then I found out, and then I went to my supervisor and I said, look, I am underpaid. He said, you work hard and prove yourself and we'll take care of it. And 6 months later, my salary was doubled from 400 to 800 rupees.
Now, like you continue to make us believe, and we feel that all these years that we have known you, you're not a man after money. And you had a job, it was double the salary within 1 year with the performance. You could have done extraordinarily well in India. But why was this dream of coming to America in your mind in 72, 73?
Well, as I said, my family, I have siblings, and in those days, still now, I think the parents' obligation is to get their daughters married. And my sister was of marriage age, and I was saving I was making 1,000 rupees, I was saving 500 rupees a month I was saving towards her marriage, but it was not enough. I said I have to come up with a device scheme. I cannot increase the amount of time I have, but I can through making use of the exchange rate. At that time was 8 rupees to $1. I say for every dollar I earn, I can cut down the time by 1/8.
So that was the electrical engineering mind working. So you think it was the necessity at home, or was it a dream that you nourished since childhood? Because when you grew up in 60s or even 50s, later of course it was everybody's dream to come to America. Was it purely the money, or it was, look, America is the most happening place, engineering excellence, I'm an engineer, I'll go do well. Was that the motivating factor?
No, I think I loved India. I continue to love India. I never wanted to leave India, but I had the liking for German language. I wanted to go to Germany to do my PhD. That did not materialize. A friend of mine suggested, why don't you go to America? And in a combination of those things, constantly in my mind, my main objective is to help my parents, help my sister, bring my family out of poverty, bring them out. And that was the main goal I had. And I was happy. In Mumbai, I was, weekends, you watch all these Hindi movies, Bollywood movies, and it was a bachelor life, was exciting. But I think the key here is that somebody has to do some sacrifice, somebody has to give up something as the old adage, where you have to give up what you have for what you want to have. And so I think that was one of the things. I still think that I should have remained in India, and I could have done much better.
Well, we'll come back to that, because you are the bridge now for India and America. But let's see, you came here, you did your master's again in electrical engineering from City University, and then you went on to work. You worked here for quite some time.
Right, I worked for CBS Television for a short time, then I worked for Electronic Associates in New Jersey. I went to Pennsylvania for Leeds and Northrop, and came back to AT&T Bell Labs.
Yep.
That's where I spent 18 years of my career.
And when did this thing occur to you? What triggered you to get into public life?
Well, when I was, as engineers, I noticed some of the weaknesses I had. One is that engineers are very dry. They're not convincing in terms of we could give technical talks, but we're not able to connect with the average person. So I wanted to improve my presentation skills. I wanted to improve my writing skills. So I did not know that I was geared for politics, but I was improving myself towards the business skills that are needed. And then I saw there was a big void in the 80s when our population, Indian American population, was rather small compared to today.
Yeah, there's less than a million.
Also, I saw in the immigrant's life, in the first 10 years of immigrant's life is spent in getting a job and getting married, buying a house and having kids. And we are not really connected with the mainstream system, the political system. I saw there was a void, and I said I saw that opportunity. I said maybe I should jump in and more to get the community, empower the community to get more power, rather than myself running for political office. So getting at the grassroots level, and success, one thing led to another.
Real renaissance in Indian community that has taken place is late 90s, 95, 96, 97, the IT group, the communication area, engineering, people were starting companies left, right and center, and you could have started easily a startup, could have gotten a seed money and probably sold it to somebody millions of dollars. And you chose to go into the most challenging life where hardly you found anybody else other than you.
Right, I think...
what triggered?
Well, I think public service, when you look at some of the great public servants in history, one of the things they have, this tremendous satisfaction they have, and they were able to make a difference. One of the things is that every one of us can live for ourselves, but it takes a special person to live for others.
Very well.
That's what led me to public service.
Very, very well said. We will come back after a short break and go into the journey of your public life. Stay right there with us. Pravasi Sammanit, Upendra Chivkula will be back.
The Leading Force is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Together we'll go far.